everyone. Welcome to Through the Looking Glass. Today I have Garima Shukla joining me. She is a doctor who works in private practice and public health in Los Angeles, while also teaching dentistry at the local university. Outside of dentistry, Dr. Shukla's biggest passion is music. She expresses herself creatively by singing and playing piano, and she also performs as princesses like Jasmine, Isabella, Mirabelle, and Moana for children on weekends. So thank you, Garima, so much for joining me today. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here. So as Lavanya said, my name is Garima Shukla. I'm actually new to LA. I moved here from Chicago. I'm born and raised in Chicago, and I was looking for a change of pace and a challenge. So I decided to just pick up my things and move to LA. It's been a great experience so far. There's been lots of ups and downs. I knew no one when I first came here. But really that has been the best part, because I got to basically start from scratch. And I feel like all the connections that I have made have been that much more meaningful.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to being a transplant myself and can express similar emotions, although I moved here a few years before you did. But I do want to know a little bit more about your career path and dentistry. Tell me a little bit about the origin of why you went down that path and how that brought you to LA.
Well, I was always a student who knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. I just wasn't sure exactly what. So I spent my time in high school trying to figure that out by shadowing different doctors, pharmacists, all different types of healthcare fields. And I landed on dentistry my senior year, actually. My older sister is a dentist as well. And she also knew she wanted to be a dentist from a young age. And I was actually resisting dentistry just for the reason that my sister was a dentist and I didn't want to copy her. So I was resisting it really, really hard. And so I tried everything else and nothing was really like speaking to me. And finally one day, senior year, I was like, you know what? I just need to give this a shot. And so I shadowed my dentist, who I had been seeing since I was a little kid, who did my braces twice because I never wore my retainer. And I realized that, wow, this is it. And I feel like it's not something you really realize as a patient until you see it from the other side. But there's a lot of artistry and creativity in dentistry. And I didn't really realize that until I shadowed my dentist. And so I kind of figured that out right away at senior year. And started the journey right away in college, basically loaded myself up with all the prereqs, did everything you have to do to try to get into dental school, and was hyper-focused.
No, that definitely makes sense. I also shared a similar thought process as you, where I didn't want to be like my dad. I don't want to be a software engineer, but I don't fall like that far away from the tree because I'm still an engineer, which is a different kind. I did aerospace, but I remember thinking that my senior year in high school too. I love that you did a shadowing process. I think seeing people in action helps you relate to if that is something that you want to do for yourself. So that's really cool. I heard you say a little bit about the inspiration and the passion that you felt with behind dentistry and helping people. Tell me more about once you actually graduated and started working. Did that live up to the hype? Did that live up to your expectations of what you thought it would be like?
For sure. So I feel so grateful and blessed that I do love what I do. And I love it for reasons other than I even knew about beforehand. So definitely the creativity and the hand skills are there. I get to use those things every single day. But something I didn't realize until I started practicing was the relationship that we're able to build as dentists with our patients. It's very personal. It's very intimate. And it's really, really special. We get to see our patients consistently, and then, once or twice a year. So we really have the ability to to see them over a lifetime. So that's I think the most rewarding part of dentistry is kind of the combination of like surgical procedures, very practical things like that, but also the long-term relationship that we get to build with our patients.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense because maybe, someone is coming to you as a child and you can see them through the years. They're coming back. Maybe they're getting braces as a teenager, and maybe as an adult, like coming back with some cavities, like who knows? But that's a lifelong relationship that you have with your patient, and that is pretty cool to be able to see that progression and see them through different phases of their life. So that's definitely really cool, and I can understand how that's really rewarding. I think a lot of people in the medical field feel similarly, as you said. So I do want to ask you one more thing about your years in university. And I think for dentistry, it's probably about 6 years. Is that right?
It's 8. So I did 4 years.
It's 8?
Yeah. 4 years of undergrad and then 4 years of dental school. And then we have optional residencies if you want to specialize in any specific field of dentistry, or after the 8 years, you're ready to practice.
I see. So 8 years is a long time. For anyone who was inspired like you during their senior year in the college, what advice would you give them to get through those 8 years?
Yeah. Buckle up. You have to take, I think, even now I'm still using this every day in my life, is to plan, but also take it one day at a time. I think we should plan big picture things and day-to-day things for sure. I think when you're in school and you're studying, you definitely have to plan day-to-day because you have to study for exams and you have to, fit in all your extracurriculars and everything. But you also have to kind of just focus in on your day, get through the day, because it can be very daunting. If you look at it, like if I were to look at how much I've done from day one of starting my journey, in college, if I had known that I was going to do all that, I probably would have not wanted to try because I'm like, that's exhausting. Yeah. So it's kind of like looking at the big picture and like knowing, okay, I'm going to be there. It's going to be hard work, but bite-sized pieces, and you never know what might inspire you and motivate you more and like push you. Like I do find, as now I've been practicing for a couple of years, I think life does get harder. There's more responsibilities. There's basically, life does get more stressful. But I have gained the ability to really live in the moment and be grateful for like each day. So things that would have been more daunting to me beforehand, now it doesn't seem like that to me because I feel more prepared. So I guess that's a long-winded answer, but I think focusing on the day-to-day really helps me get through, help me get through my training and helps me get through tough times now as well.
I can definitely resonate with that, and I think that stands pretty true to, and it's applicable to anybody if you think about it.
For sure.
Because it's good. Like every time you have a long-term goal, I want to get this degree. I want to do, I don't know, maybe you want to go to the Olympics and compete or whatever your goal is. It can be kind of this like long-term achievement, but most people only see that moment of like when you're graduating or when you're winning a medal. That's what's visible to the public or someone who's an outsider, but you probably put in days, months, and years of work that led up to that one day when you're reaping the rewards, and that each and every single one of those days leading up to it, everything that you're doing towards your goal, I think that's the most difficult part, and it's often overlooked in our society because we do value those celebratory moments significantly more than the day-to-day. But getting to the next day and knowing what you need to do, or having a to-do list of these are tasks that I want to achieve today, even though I don't feel like getting to work or getting to school or going to class, but taking those bite sizes like you mentioned, I think that's something that a lot of people might miss the mark on thinking about. So that's definitely great advice. So next thing I'm kind of thinking about that I want to hear your thoughts on is I know you moved to LA recently. Tell me about the differences that you've seen with working in the Midwest versus LA. Do you feel like there's a cultural change, a shift, or not so much with dentistry?
With dentistry specifically, there has been a huge culture shock for me. There's just a lot more volume of patients here. So I'm seeing a lot more patients in a day, which has helped me grow my skill set because I'm getting a lot more experience. And it's also made me more efficient. It's made me more culturally competent. There's a lot of Hispanic population here, specifically where I work in LA. So working with that demographic has also helped me, understand another culture even better. So it's been really, really rewarding in that regard as well. I would say in general, the work-life balance that I've experienced through the connections I've made, the friends I've made here, it seems like people have the work-life balance a little bit more. I think they know how to do it a little bit better here than back home. I think it's because there's so much amazing stuff to do around here. So I feel like people emphasize mental health and physical health even a little bit more here.
I do agree with that particular lifestyle kind of mindset. It is unique to Southern California, I would say. Doesn't even ring true to Northern California, in my opinion. But people around here do enjoy that, slightly slower pace of life where you are taking the time to get your, steps in or to make time for social activities and to have that balance. I'm originally from the East Coast, so things are a lot more fast paced in terms of how quickly people move with their work life in comparison to Southern California. For sure, it's much different in that way. And I personally prefer it to be a little bit more balanced. And tell me more about how exactly you find balance. I know I'm sure you work really hard and you have a lot of responsibilities, but I know that you are someone who also loves life.
Yeah. So I find balance. Well, here's the thing. I looked for jobs and didn't pick a job until I found the one that would allow me to have the work-life balance that I wanted. So I don't think it's necessarily always given to you. There are some jobs and some positions that won't allow you to necessarily have that work-life balance. So if you really value that, I think that's a criteria that you should look for in a job. It's very easy to get to live your life with just work in mind, go to work, come home late, eat dinner, go to sleep. And I feel like I was getting to that point, and I realized that why did I move to California? I don't even have time to do anything. So when I realized that, I started to look for something else. And luckily, I was able to find a good mixture of a couple of my passions. So I practice dentistry, but I also get to teach it now. So I have students who come to my clinic that I get to supervise as they're working on patients. And so that kind of gives me a break from my practice. It gives me a chance to reflect on my own work and my students' work. And then another thing that really helps me maintain the balance is making myself accountable and scheduling activities for myself. So it kind of sounds like kind of mundane and boring, but I really like to schedule fun things into my calendar. It's like something nice to look forward to, and that way I know that I'm going to do it. I think it's important to prioritize, if you're trying to go for that work-life balance, to prioritize your fun activities just like you would prioritize a meeting. So my calendar is full of all the fun things as well. So, seeing love today, like that would be on my schedule. So that helps me stay accountable. And another thing that helps me maintain balance is the people that, I keep close, people that I talk to every day, for example, I talk to my mom every day. She kind of knows what's going on. She knows which days I'm doing what. So she's going to ask. She'll be like, did you go to the gym yesterday? You know? So
Yeah.
it helps to let people who are close to you in on your goals. So it's not just you, but someone else is checking in on you too.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because sometimes if no one knows about your goals, you can kind of cheat your way out of it a little bit. So sometimes that's what moms are for, especially when they have grown daughters. They're just here to listen to us about our days and like remind us, you said you were going to do this and you're not doing it. So that's actually a really great tip. And I love that you schedule fun activities on your schedule. And that's not just work, because you have a point there, because if you don't schedule that, dinner with friends or going on a date or seeing your family, sometimes it feels like with work you might never do it, right? So that's definitely super valid, and I do kind of can understand that feeling of like, oh my god, like why am I scheduling something that is supposed to be like a fun thing, but I'm personally an organization freak, so I'm totally fine with having my color-coded calendar with all the activities and knowing what colors for school or work or friends or travel or whatever it is. But I think you definitely have great tips on that. Tell me more about your journey with music. Did you always like singing? Did you take classes as a child? And did you take piano lessons? Where was the origin there?
So I started singing and piano both at a very young age. Piano I was forced into by my parents.
What age were you?
I was 7. I didn't practice ever. Like I would have class once a week, and then I think right before class the next week, I'd be like, oh, I was supposed to practice these skills. Let me just hammer these out. So, I mean, teachers know, of course. So that went on for about a year or two where I just wasn't practicing, but my parents wouldn't let me give up. They tried calendars for me and everything. But like I said, I've just never have had that intrinsic motivation for anything besides school. Like, I've always wanted to study for school. But when it came to, like, extracurriculars, I didn't really have that. But I owe it all to my parents. They didn't give up on me. And finally, I don't know what clicked, but I started practicing. And then I continued to learn. I learned for about 9 years, I think. And then with singing, I started around age 9. It was actually a funny story. My mom was going to perform a song to an event that we were going to. And I heard her like singing it on our way out. And I'm like, Mom, you're singing it wrong. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're a little pitchy. And I'm like 9 years old. She's like, okay, well, you sing it as a joke. And then I sang it. And this was my first time ever singing like out loud. I guess I had been singing to, I don't really remember, but I guess I had been singing to myself, but I had never performed or expressed even an interest in singing. But something happened that day, and I'm like, Mom, I think I can correct you. So she's like, okay, go ahead and sing it. And so I sang it for them. They're like, do you want to do it instead? So that day and the rest is history. I did take lessons here and there pretty sporadically. Again, was not really that motivated to actually take lessons, but I did consistently sing. In choir, I did musical theater, and then continued to perform. Even in dental school, I kind of broke that whole barrier. Dental school, as you can probably imagine, isn't very much, it's not like college where there's like dance teams or any really cultural stuff, but I kind of broke that barrier and started a club where we did Indian dancing and singing and everything. So I even continued in dental school. And then moving out here to LA has been great because there's just so much creativity here, the creative space, and the passion that people have for the arts is just, it's contagious. So that's, when you're surrounded by people who are passionate about what they do, it just inspires you to delve even deeper into your own passions. And so I recently started taking lessons, going again with that accountability thing. And so for sure because of that, I'm practicing way more than I ever have. And I don't think it's ever too late. I mean, I could have been practicing since I was younger, but it's never too late. If I have a consistent schedule now, I think that's good enough.
Yeah, I love that. Clearly, you have amazing natural talent. I've seen you sing before, and it definitely shows. And I'm sure the lessons that you're taking is only going to help you be better and better. I am so surprised that your university didn't have any like cultural clubs or like dancing or singing that is within the South Asian community that you could join. But I think you mentioned that you started something while you were at university.
So my university did, and I was part of all of those things. My dental school I'm talking about, they, I mean, there's usually not enough time for that type of stuff in dental school. But
yeah,
I think, and this is something I'm really proud of, I feel like our generation specifically has really tried to kind of familiarize ourselves with our roots and represent and like bring that representation to the forefront. And so I don't feel I was alone. I think everyone kind of wanted to express our culture and display it, you know, for people, share it with people. And specifically in dental school, it's like a smaller cohort, of course. But there were people from all over the world in my school. Like there were so many different languages being spoken. And so that also, I think, motivated us to want to learn from each other's cultures. So creating that, and I see that now more and more. I think all the generations like younger than us now too are really appreciating not only South Asian, but all the cultures that, you know, that exist, that are all coexisting here.
I completely agree with you on that point. I think compared to when we were growing up and to the mindset in our society now, there's a lot more openness to and willingness to learn about other cultures, whether it's from South Asian cultures or any other country. I think certain things can get lost in translation, but music kind of has its own way of communicating certain things that sometimes feels like it transcends language in some ways. I want to know more about, you mentioned that it's never too late to tap into any talent that you have or learn new skills. Tell me more about what you would say to people who have been very focused in school, kind of like both of us, I would say. I think we both had a pretty rigorous, like young adult life where we spent a lot of years in school, focused a lot of our energy into academics and getting our degrees and getting our career to a point where it's like, you know, we're working, but now we're maybe past that, like a few years of working, and we're trying to find other things that we're passionate about and tap into different energies that brings us joy in different ways. And sometimes it can be hard for people who are trying to do different things, and it might feel like, oh, I'm, you know, in my late 20s or 30s and I've never done something like singing or dancing. Maybe people feel a little shy about trying, or feel like, oh, it's too late because I didn't do it, you know, from when I was 5 years old. Because I think a lot of people have that story where they say, oh, I've been dancing or I've been singing since I was 5. What would you say to people who are a late creative starts?
I would say, you know, get yourself in a group of people. One of the first classes I took when I moved here to LA, I moved not knowing anyone. I had no friends or family, and so I decided to take a group dance class. And that day, I was surrounded by like 50 people. At the end of the class, I realized no one talked about work. No one talked about their age or their responsibilities or anything stressful. We were all just enjoying the moment, learning this choreography. The power of like passion and energy really, you know, it made like everything kind of slip away. Every stress and anything else that was on my mind kind of slip away. And I realized later, as I became friends with people and got to know them better, I realized some people were way younger than me, some people were way older than me, but when you're in that moment, you're all just there for one reason, and that's to have fun, and explore whatever creative passion there is. So you can't predict necessarily how old someone is or what stage they are in life. So don't let that ever hinder you from, if there's something you want to do, because you'll find people who are, it's never too late.
It's never too late.
This actually, I realized now later, during dental school, so this might help somebody who's in their training. During dental school, I tried to find balance between comparing myself to others and, focusing on myself, because I think it is important to gauge. You should kind of know where other people are, where your classmates are and your peers are, so you know where you need to go. But it can also be very detrimental if you're constantly comparing yourself, because everyone, learns at a different pace, and everyone's skills are different. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses. But now, after moving to LA, after, as an adult, as a working professional, I'm reflecting and I'm realizing I'm going back to talk to some of my peers that I went to dental school with, and dude, everyone struggled. I did not realize that at the time. It's just so easy to see other people, whatever stage. I'm specifically talking about, training in dental school, but any stage in life, it's very easy to look at someone else and be like, oh, they're in this path and it's kind of laid out for them. Must be nice. But that is so far from the truth. I've been, like I said, I've been like reconnecting with some of my dental student friends, and I didn't realize that everyone struggled, in different ways, but we all put on this brave face, for the world. And I think if we open up the opportunity to really be vulnerable and to talk to people more openly about what we're really feeling, of course, finding the right people. But if you do surround yourself with people that you can, be candid with and be honest with, you'll be surprised how similar your journey might be in terms of what you struggle with. Because our struggles, they are unique, but having struggles is not unique. And so being able to talk to other people really grounds you and kind of helps you kind of just chill, relax. We're all trying to do the same thing, trying to find balance in life, trying to find happiness, and talking to others, being open about your thoughts and everything is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is definitely something that doesn't cross your mind, because I've experienced some of that at different phases in my life too, where kind of after the fact, you're talking to your college mates and you're realizing, wait, you had no idea what was happening in that class. Like, I didn't know either. That moment, or even at work, if you're seeing someone present something and you think, oh my God, they know everything about this one product, but they probably felt the same way 6 months ago when they joined the group or something like that. So I think that kind of taking the lens off of yourself and taking yourself out of what you're thinking and trying to maybe be open to listening to something that someone else has to say can really make your life more fulfilling in that way, and know what is going on in your community. And sometimes it takes that moment for you to be vulnerable and be the first person to say, hey, you know what? I don't know what's going on. And be that, once that moment happens, I kid you not, there's probably going to be, 20 people who are like, oh my God, yes, me too. But you probably don't get that visibility or information, maybe sometimes, if you aren't willing to be that person who is open in your community, whether it's at work or in the creative industry or your friend circle and things like that. But I think that's a great reminder for all of us to think about. It definitely helps to be a part of a community. So can you speak more on how you see your place in your community now, and maybe finding your way there, and how you might want to give back?
Sure. So by taking dance lessons or attending dance workshops, you meet a lot of, in LA specifically, you meet a lot of people from all fields. And so you'll notice that people who are going to these dance workshops or, like a Bollywood night, are maybe some of them are not even creative people with creative passions, but they enjoy it, So, just attending different events. I used to go to them alone, and that was kind of scary. I guess that was the uncomfortable part. But then, like you said, you find people that you resonate with, and can't force it. And I think I did put a lot of pressure on myself. I was here for a couple months and thinking, how am I going to make friends? Because I was born and raised in Chicago. I knew who I knew, I felt like I didn't have to work hard to have those friendships and also like when you're in school, you have forced friendships and you end up, loving your classmates and you see them every day. So it's kind of easier to build friendships.
Yeah.
But here, I was having a difficult time with that, and I was putting a lot of pressure. I felt like I was putting pressure on myself, like why is nothing working? But then as I gave myself some time, I gave myself some time to be alone. I spent a lot of time alone, like weekends alone. And at some point, sometimes it would feel like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to meet anyone to hang out with? But that forced me to do a lot of like touristy things. I did a lot of LA things that people that I know who are born and raised here have never done because they live here. So why would they do them? So that was a really good time. So I'll get to the point of community, but I think before I could come to the point to appreciate and really receive a community, I learned how to be really comfortable with myself. And in that whole time, I really figured out and uncovered a lot of aspects of myself that I had never even had given myself the time to do so because I was always with my family or my friends. So moving to a new place, not knowing anyone, I had to sit with my own thoughts. That can be scary sometimes, but it really reveals to you who you are, what your values are, what's important to you. And so I think I really prepared myself, and then the friends and like the connections, they came. I feel like they came to me because I was ready to receive. I know who I am. I'm honest with myself, and so at that point, there's not much effort you need to put because if you're authentically yourself, the people who resonate with that, they'll come to you. So I really feel that when I was trying to force friendships and connections, that's why I wasn't having much success. But when I took time and really spent time with myself, that's when real connections really sparked.
No, I love that. I think that's so true because I think sometimes people can get so caught up in trying to please others and wanting to be, part of a friend group or wanting to become someone's friend that you kind of lose sight of your own self a little bit. And I've kind of went through like a similar situation as you with having moved to like a new place and not knowing anyone. This was years ago, like before I moved to LA. I didn't know anyone when I moved to that city for work, and kind of similar to you, I was spending those like consecutive weekends with myself, and there's a lot of that personal growth that you go through and being comfortable in your own skin, in your own thoughts, and almost like entertaining yourself in some ways. That's so important because I think a lot of times we forget how much time we're spending with ourselves, and it's important to anyone, I think, to find that inner space where you can be clear and be calm and be present and kind of recharge yourself before you enter your community or your workspace or whatever your goals that you're trying to achieve. Because I think if you don't have that clarity for yourself and that peace of mind almost, you're not going to be able to put your best authentic self out there in any way, and it's just going to create this cloud around you that you're not going to be able to see clearly, whether if it's knowing if someone's your real friend or knowing if you're doing the right thing with work or what your goals are. I think that resonates to a lot of people and rings true in any
Absolutely.
phase of life.
I think that also opens you up to figuring out what your values are and the type of people you want to surround yourself with. It allows you to, live life along your terms. Like you had mentioned a little bit about like people pleasing. I think if you allow the right people to come in your life and allow the right people to leave, everything's gonna be aligned. Because I think we tend to, if we're trying to fit into a certain social circle or something, we tend to start doing things that we don't necessarily even want to do, but we feel like we need to do them. And then it's like, what's the point? What are we trying to achieve there if you're not doing it's not serving you? So yeah, definitely very important to figure out what serves you, and then things that serve you, keep them in your life. And it's really important to also let go of certain things and clear your path.
Yeah, I love that. Clear your path. I think that's something that, I want to put on like a sticky note or something and keep it where I'll see it a lot. I think that's a great message. I think sometimes for a lot of us who, are in this pretty fast-paced life where we're trying to do a lot of different things, balance work, school, or other activities like your singing or whatever it may be, it can get difficult to kind of lose sight of that balance. And I think there's this element of guilt that kicks in. I don't know if you've experienced guilt around being able to do it all. I think there's a lot of glamour around being able to do everything in our community and society in general. So tell me more about, have you felt guilty, or how do you cope with feeling refreshed when you feel that pressure to do everything?
I think the only reason we would feel guilty about not being able to balance or putting too much time into certain activities is if we don't know why we're doing what we're doing. So one way that I have found clarity and brought myself to the point where I don't feel guilty about the things that I'm doing is to kind of question what I'm doing and make sure I have an answer. So if there's something I am prioritizing and I realize it's not serving me, or it's not making me healthier, it's not making me happier, and it's not bringing any positive impact to anyone else, why am I doing it, type of thing. And if it doesn't really fit into any of those categories, then I should probably let it go. We should never feel guilty for lazing around either. I think if you're working hard, if you're working towards whatever your goals are, it's okay to take time to do things just for fun that might not have a very obvious purpose, but in itself, it's serving the purpose of, some mindless activities. We need, again, back to balance, we need that balance. And, sometimes I just go to the beach and lay there and stare at the ocean, and you need that.
Sometimes you need that.
And there's the argument that was extremely not productive. You did nothing with your day. The reset that you feel after doing literally nothing makes you that much more efficient and effective with everything that you're doing, like the next day.
That's so true. I think that sometimes people do forget to take that time for themselves. So as part of my closing segment, I'm going to ask you a question that all of my guests are going to get. And the question is, what is your word for this year or this chapter of your life? It can be one word or two words. Or
winning.
Winning. I love that. Okay, well, I am looking forward to see you winning this year and looking forward to knowing what that's going to look like for you. Garima, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. I've loved listening to your answers, and I'm sure people are going to love